Coming to dinner. Hello. Happy Monday. Welcome to Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. I haven't seen you for a while. I've been running. I got a new telephone and this makes a whole lot of noise. So excuse me so I can turn it down. I was running the farewell to my friend and classmate Bruce Johnson for the past week. And today they actually streamed his services in DC. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. And he was just the person that I really thought he was. He was that same kind of standing in his own light kind of person that's giving and sharing and knowledgeable and mentoring and loving and funny and witty and honest. You know, I heard his children speak about him. If you're interested, I can down here in the chat box. I can put. I don't know if it's still up, but it's under C. Bruce Johnson.org. The TV station that he worked for. They did the streaming for him this morning. It was beautiful. His Kappa brothers did their ritual ceremony before the funeral started, and that was beautiful. I caught the end of that. And I hope I sent out the link to several of his classmates. I hope you got it. If you didn't, I think you still may be able to see it today. It was quite touching. Bruce had reached the highest height in his career. He had written his third book. He survived a heart attack before he survived. He beat cancer. And this past attack of the heart failure came Sunday, not yesterday, but last Sunday. And he succumbed to it. It was when somebody dies suddenly, it's just shocking and painful in more ways than one. I lost Bruce. We lost Dwayne Haynes. I mean, they both took me to my knees, really took me to my knees. And I know I deal with death in different ways, different people. I don't know why. Some more hurt and pain. When somebody's sick, it's different and they pass. When somebody's doing great and life is good and all is well with the world, it's painful. It's really painful. So Bruce has had his homegoing as of today. I want to thank all my friends for calling me and touching base with me, extending their condolences, because they could see that I was really excited maybe about bringing Bruce to Louisville. Taking a deep breath from that part of the last week's activities. We're going to look at a bright light in our life. And that bright light is Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Okay. They're calling her KBJ already. She's got some initials that they're using, acronyms. I'm going to call her Justice Brown Jackson. um, elegant, first class, professional, um, full of character and integrity, to sit and be somewhat ridiculed by those who choose to judge. Remember, the Lord said, "Judge ye not." I don't know, folks, do they relate to what the Bible says in any kind of way when how people treat each other? Our code of civility is gone out the window. There is no code. There is no civility almost in our discourse that we have. The right and the left, the black and the white. It's a sad thing. But Miss Brown, and I'm going to say somebody else that really bowled me over last week, and that was Senator Cory Booker. If anybody had to stand up for a sister, now, we heard somebody else talking about a man standing up for a woman or whatever. That was standing up for Justice Jackson. Okay. Cory Booker, Senator Cory Booker, stood up for her in that beautiful speech that he gave, as she sat and had to sit and listen to supposedly professional men of faith, men of some moral standard. It's not a high standard. It's just some moral standard. Defame her character. That's what they did. And she took it. I guess they say she took it with a grain of salt because they could win those minute battles that they were fighting, trying to make points so that when they run for re-election, they would have sound bites. But she won the war. She won the whole dang thing. You know what I mean? And we should be proud. That's coming a long way. Just like she said, it took one generation from segregation to the Supreme Court. Now that's when they stepped on the moon, one giant step for man, one giant step for mankind. In the United States, oh yes. But we have to, on that subject, we have to believe in this system of justice. I don't say we have to believe in it, but this is all we have to work with. But what we have to do is continue to fight to make those necessary changes, to make living in this country livable. Do I want to still live here? No, I don't. But I'm here. But do I like it? Not like my allegiance to it is not like it was. Because, it's difficult to be somewhere when you know you're unwanted and that people are trying every day to take away just your basic human rights, your right to vote, your right to good health care, your right to a good education. We want the same things that any other race, culture wants: to raise our children, have a roof over our heads, a decent education, and food on the table. Now, I don't think that's asking an awful lot, since we did not ask to come over here in the first place, but it seems to be that that's something we're supposed to forget. We're supposed to forget that, we were stolen from our country, our culture. But we assimilated. We assimilated and we excelled. So when you talk to your children about what's going on, and see, we need to talk to our children about what's going on in the world so that they can have an understanding, because everything is not candy and money to go shopping and a new cell phone and Nike shoes. That is not life. That is not real. That is some superficial BS. Okay? And if your children are stuck on the materialistic things of this world, they're in for a rude awakening. Because when they find out how they are looked upon in this world, and they have no idea how to navigate that, then that falls back on you, the parents. Listening to Bruce's children talk about him this morning, it was joyful because he was a father that taught his children at every step of the way, sounded like to me. And he kind of sounded like the same person that I knew in high school and college. So we must teach our children to have standards for themselves, not to suit someone else's purpose, but to have standards for themselves. This is what I stand for. This is who I am. I believe in truth and honor. Honor is a word that's not used a lot nowadays at all. And honor has to do with family as well. Especially our senior citizens, they are to be honored. Our ancestors are to be honored. For this young lady, Miss Ketanji Brown Jackson, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, she is to be honored. She's a judge, Honorable Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. You hear what I'm saying? All that goes along with her name. Every bit of it. People always want to shortcut something. Give folks their props. Her name ain't Tangi. Her name ain't Miss Brown. Her name ain't Miss Jackson. She is Honorable Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Give her props. That took a lot to get that. That's a hammer. When somebody said, put a hammer on my name and you talk to me, because kids can't call me Janice. They can call me Miss Janice, but they can't just call me Janice. You don't know me that well. How about that? We're having a special guest today, and I think they're en route or looking to set up or come on at some point in time. I'm just going to double check and make sure that everything's all right. But otherwise, I had a few issues that I wanted to talk about anyway until mayoral candidate Tim Findley Jr. joins us today. Hopefully he'll join us today because I've got him slated and we have talked. So I'm looking for him to be here. He explained that he might be en route, leaving one meeting, going to another, and he can connect with us on phone. Excuse me. Can I get some water, please? Thank you. So the next issue, and then once again, kudos to Honorable Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. I interviewed Miss Jackson the other week ago, and now, did I say it right? Ketanji Brown Jackson. Oh, Lord. Y'all know what I meant. So anyway, I'm moving to Ukraine. Now, this war is something we need to keep our eye on. And I say keep our eye on because in order for Thank you, darling. Just a minute, excuse me. I thought you'd give me the other glass.
Oh, I do.
The war has, we need to keep an eye on it because it could have some ramifications on our lifestyle or how comfortable we are at this moment, because we may not be as safe and secure in what's going on with us where we are right now. If anything changes the dynamics of the war in Ukraine. But it's something to see aside from how this tyrant has rained terror down on this country. Thank you. Rained terror down on this country and killing at will innocent citizens, trying to flee the country even, okay? But if you noticed, there was the conflict in there. There were some Africans caught up in fleeing Ukraine that were not allowed to get on buses, get on trains, get on planes before Ukrainians. And aside from that, every country opened their doors. Every country opened their doors to the Ukrainians. Now, when the Cubans and the Haitians and the Africans and the Muslims became refugees, they weren't all received anywhere in the world. So it's just something about that Caucasian and that black and white dynamic that we are never accepted. The doors were closed to us. But Ukrainians, Europeans opened their doors. You haven't heard anybody saying, oh, it's too many people at the border. Can't let them in. Oh, Lord, the border, was not the case. But keep your eye on this war because it could have some adverse effect on the United States if we don't do some things to help Ukraine. If you listen to the president's speech yesterday, it was a little disheartening to me. So we have to be vigilant and keep our eye on it. And I think President Biden knows what he needs to do. You know what I'm saying? He has to take care of business. Just like this young man that is my guest today. I am very honored to have mayoral candidate, Mr. Tim Findley Jr. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm jantastic. That's what I'm supposed to say. I'm jantastic, 24/7.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So I was trying to give you a chance to get here and get settled. I kind of go over the things that have been happening in the world over the last week. And so I touched on some of those things. So, Tim, I don't know you. I've met you, and we're going to talk about that. I met you up at the Molo openings. I don't know if you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember me stopping you on the street and talking to you?
I remember.
Do you?
I vaguely remember. Vaguely.
But first, tell me about Tim Findley and what made Tim Findley want to run for mayor.
Well, born and raised here in Louisville, Kentucky, pastor Kingdom Fellowship Christian Life Center. Been doing that since March 2008. I am the president and founder of the Life Development Corporation, a 501c3 nonprofit that's doing very well here in the city as well. And honestly, just being active in the community, active in many civic organizations, a former employee of the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods in this administration, and a part of the transition team for Governor Beshear, I always knew that this was sort of the trajectory,
Okay.
the way that I was headed.
Okay.
But really, it was during the unrest of 2020 that I decided to go ahead and do it now, where I was looking at later on as I get closer to my 50s. I thought around that time I'd go ahead and make the splash, but that came about 10 years early. And
Okay.
decided that I'd go ahead and do that now. Simply, a lot of my leadership, and I've been blessed in the city to impact a lot of people, those who I work with, the different organizations. We've impacted a lot of people, but a lot of what we do is reactive. So we react to bad policies, and we try to figure out ways to feed people, clothe people, bring education, all those kind of things that are reacting to what's in place. And for me, this step allows me to be proactive and really be in rooms at the table and sitting at the head of that table, and to craft programs, policy, legislation, well, at least assist or add political will to legislation that would help the everyday life of the people in this city. So that's the long and short of it.
Okay. So where'd you go to high school?
Moore High School.
You went to Moore?
I
Wow.
went to Moore High School.
I used to sub at Moore.
Okay.
That was a long time ago. I did a lot of subbing in JCPS schools. And on that note, schools, what do you see? What do you think about the new assignment, open assignment?
The assignment plan.
Yeah.
I've got questions still. I mean, again, it was already, the previous plan was 40, 50 years old, and obviously people are familiar with, well, hopefully they are familiar with the inequities in the public
Were you bust,
system.
Tim?
I'm sorry?
Were you bust? You were bust.
I was.
Okay.
I was.
How did that affect your life?
Well, at that time, you're not really familiar. Certain things, because it's normal, you don't think like that because it's just the way that you grew up. So you being on the bus for 2 or 3 hours is just the norm. It's what happens.
Yeah.
And I grew up in the Newburgh area.
Okay.
So what was interesting was that although I was close to Moore, Newburgh and Moore were kind of some of the same neighborhood.
Right.
It still was a long bus ride, and we still had to go to different places. So it still wasn't, it was still very inconvenient, still early. So I think
picked you up first and dropped you off last.
Absolutely. All that kind of stuff. So, I think that there are certainly improvements that need to be made. And JCPS is a sort of its own entity, where I think from a mayoral standpoint and from a metro government standpoint, we just need to have a better relationship. So I'm a former steering committee member of Evolve 502, which is sort of a JCPS sort of, I'm trying to think the way I put it, but they're closely connected with and work with JCPS.
Like a think tank.
Yeah, sort of like that, but maybe a little bit more involved in a think tank.
Okay.
But I say that to say where I think local government can do a better job is creating those relationships and creating open lines of communication so that, we can sort of strategize together as it relates to busing, schools, and really dealing with segregation. So, yeah.
Do you see a closer relationship between the mayor's office and
Dr. Polio?
The council offices?
Oh, could there be one?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. There's really virtually no relationship right now.
Yeah.
So, I think that the next mayor will want to make sure that there's a better relationship. And to be completely honest, that's not going to be hard to do because there's no relationship there now. So
you start from scratch, huh?
yeah, you're starting from scratch. So I think that is, it's just unhealthy and dysfunctional as a city government for the mayor and city council not to be constantly in communication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I see, I keep watching. I'm saying something. There's a disconnect there.
Yeah.
It's like the mayor has one agenda and they have another agenda, and their agendas only cross when they have to vote on either his or their own,
Right.
but they're never in conjunction with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I think that's where that communication is going to be really important, effective communication. So, it happens.
So tell me a couple of things, Tim, that you would like to see change if you become mayor. What are some things that you would like to see happen, especially for the Black community?
Sure. People can get a lot of this on my website at findleyformayor.com. But the things that I'm very passionate about, and really was the person that came out first pushing these things, things like guaranteed basic income is big for me. I'm pushing that heavy. Universal pre-K, kids 3, 4, and 5. There being funding for that we see from a national or from a federal and a state level. They're working that through. But universal pre-K, also fare free transit, for certain census tracts. So I was the first one to talk about this stuff. I've really been the only one pushing it. So when you talk about what's different between myself and these other candidates, is that I actually have worked out points and platforms that I'm pushing that I think, especially in our neighborhoods and marginalized neighborhoods, it will help, because we understand that wealth gap, the racial wealth gap, is not closing by itself. So, when people hear guaranteed basic income, universal basic income, they get kind of scared. But the fact is, that's what Dr. King was about. Most people who are pushing universal basic income, they're taking some from what Dr. King what he pushed. And he was one who was on record talking about that. And I think in the city of Louisville, a lot of what we're seeing from an economic disparity standpoint, we're going to have to take those kinds of measures. And then I'm also a proud advocate, pusher for reparations. In 2021, our mayor, he authorized, so to speak, a study of reparations. I'm ready to take that a step further and put together a commission and really work out a strategy as it relates to reparations. Because again, I keep going back to this, and people that know me know how passionate I am about this. The wealth gap is not going to close by itself. It's just not. And it's not going to just automatically get better. It's one of those things that if we don't do something, and if we don't do something immediately, it's just not going to get better. So that's sort of that resolution that was signed in 2021 by Mayor Fisher. It was a good first step, but now we need to put a little bit more political will behind it.
Tim, there are a lot of things. I'm going to be one of your constituents at the moment. There are a lot of things that I see from my perspective that seem to be okay. So we've got a crime issue with our kids killing each other, and it seems a lot of every time before you can get to action, we have to go through strategies and sometimes I don't think we're at a point right now, especially on that issue about the violence, that we have too much time to strategize, because we're losing a whole generation of children with the violence that's going on in our community. We're looking for organizations that have programming geared toward crime prevention. And most programs, except for now, I know Dr. Woods has his program, and he's been doing that for years. But most programs are not geared towards crime prevention per se. And what I would like to see, I'm trying to figure out how can we do something, because I don't think it's for our adolescents so much, because they have programming in this city for adolescents. But for our 16 to 25-year-olds, just ponder this. You don't have to answer this right now. I'm thinking that there needs to be something, an immediacy to provide them with some type of outlet. A lot of programs have come up recently, but is there anything that you've thought about in becoming mayor would help this age group to have a better understanding of who they are, where they are, and to give them a ray of hope? Because I feel like they're a group of kids that have no hope. Is there something? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I don't know how. So a lot of my work in Ocean, the Office of Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods, I was the faith-based liaison, and Ocean is the office where prevention, intervention in terms of community violence, gun violence, and the different arrays of violence are often dealt with. It was up until 2020, it had been defunded, divested from for years. And then, of course, things began to happen and money starts coming that way. So, yeah, there are things from a clergy standpoint, from a faith, houses of faith standpoint, from
Okay.
community centers and investing in neighborhoods. All of that is really, really important. But I always like to preface this conversation and tell people, and of course, certainly not you. I'm just saying in a general
Yeah.
sense. I tell people to take a step back, because a lot of times we are caught up in moments without thinking about the big picture. So,
Okay.
for instance, I went back and looked at the 2010 primary and the general election,
Mm-hmm.
and then in 14, and then in 18. And what was interesting is that for each one of those elections, the two things that they talked the most about were public
What?
safety and affordable housing.
Really?
Absolutely. Um, those were the two. Those were literally the two main things. Um, Now, certainly, no one would argue. We certainly have a gun violence epidemic in our city. We do have an issue, but I will say this: we're coming out of a pandemic that exposed a whole lot of things that cannot be reasoned away. From a state level, we had a former governor, who signed legislation that took away permits for concealed weapons. So in Kentucky, it's the wild, wild west. We
Yeah.
also see that over the years, there's been a slow and steady divestment from neighborhoods, and couple that with exploding budgets as it relates to police. So all of these things, I tell people all the time, we can't keep putting a band-aid on broken bones. And
No.
some of this stuff is not going to be turned around overnight. There are specific and immediate things we can do, like, funding programs, getting clergy and houses of faith to the table, opening community centers, and making sure that we're doing those things. But we got to start dealing with root causes. I agree with you wholeheartedly when you talk about a lack of hope. Well, a lot of the lack of hope has to do not just with, oh, it's nothing for the kids to do. That may be an aspect of it,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of the lack of hope is when you come outside and you see the state of sidewalks, the state of your parks, the state of your neighborhood, the state of the vacant and abandoned properties with the high grass all around you. Psychologically and emotionally, that drains you of hope, and it
Yeah.
affects the way that you see your area and things of that nature. So it may not be the attractive answer that people want to hear, but I believe that to help with gun violence, first of all, we got to deal with the root causes, as it relates to jobs, resources, income, childcare, all those things. But then I also feel when it comes to these vacant and abandoned properties, when it comes to making sure the streets, don't have potholes and the sidewalks are walkable, and that there are tree canopies, all these different things that a mayor is actually supposed to do to make sure that the street lights work in neighborhoods.
Right.
Those are very important things, along with, the programs, all of that. We need to do it, and I'm an advocate for it. But I also understand a lot of the hopelessness that kids, young people have. It's their surroundings too, And then we haven't even gotten to ghost guns. And most people don't even know what ghost guns are. Right now, you can go on the internet and buy the parts for guns without any kind of permitting, very easily, and then put together a gun at home that can't be traced because it doesn't have a serial number, because it's not coming as a gun. You're buying it as parts. Now, in 2021, they said we didn't have a ghost gun problem in Louisville, not yet. But I think it's becoming more and more an issue. And that's why maybe, along with community, needing to foster community relationship, that's the reason why you don't have people, murders being solved and can't find the murder weapon and things of that nature. So honestly, the short answer is this: we need a leader. We need someone who can lead and bring people to the table and deal with these very complex issues with people, and have sort of a different kind of thinking. Because I think the knee-jerk reaction is violence problem, more police. Violence problem, bigger police budget. On and on and on. One of the candidates was involved in a gun issue, a violent crime issue, an attempt on his life. And again, as horrible and terrible as that is, and unfortunate as that is, the first thing he said was, based on this, we need to fully fund the police. That's a problem, because that's what we've been doing. And as we fully fund the police, we are fully defunding programs, offices, and other areas that can do prevention work.
Right. So you see, like, there needs to be a separate entity, maybe within the police department, that every time they call 911, because I have a problem with 911. I think 911 needs some training in every state across the country, because just because someone looks suspicious, there's no need for a 911 call, nor is it a need for someone to send an officer out on that call.
Well, that's one of the reasons why that there are, and this program is about to take root here in Louisville, but having therapists and things of that nature, a 911 deflection center, and sending out therapists and social, trained social workers to certain situations that may not need an officer. So that actually is about to start happening. They're working that now.
Oh, that's wonderful, because the young autistic child that they killed and shot him up with something that he had a reaction to and later died from. How does 911 say someone calls and says, I see somebody walking down the street and he looks suspicious? This little boy died because somebody said he looks suspicious. Tim, that's crazy to me.
Well, the issue in Louisville is that most of the people that are dealing with that kind of situation look like you and I.
Right.
The vast majority of people in Louisville aren't dealing with that situation. And unfortunately, we're having to get more people to see those kinds of issues as being issues. And until that happens, I've said over and over that some things, as it relates to racism, sexism, classism, all these different things, some things aren't going to change until it's more than just Black people saying it's a problem.
Right. Years ago, when Mayor Fisher first ran for office, I ran, myself and another young lady, we ran the headquarters down at 24th and Broadway. And I learned that voted in the West End, basically, or 6,000. So the day that I saw you on the street, Tim, do you remember my conversation with you?
Not totally.
I said, Tim, you don't know me. I said, but do you remember? I asked you, I said, have you and Shamika talked to each other? I said,
Mm-hmm.
because there are 6,000 votes that are now, at first with you and Shamika, it was going to be split 2 ways, but now it's going to be split 3 ways. How does that factor into your being able to come out with the larger percentage of this vote?
You said it's going to be split 3 ways?
You, Shamika, and Greenberg.
Oh, great. Well, honestly, it may not be Greenberg. It may be Nicholson.
It may be what?
I said it
Nicholson?
may be Nicholson. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
But
So
okay.
then that's 4 ways, but I'm saying that 6,000 votes is necessary for basically you and Shamika.
Sure.
That's your base.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now if that's split up, how do you see navigating that? How do you feel about
Well, let
the
me
way
ask
that
you,
things are
when you
moving?
say split up, what do you think? Because people often have said to me, in the same way I think that Nicholson and Greenberg are going to split the vote, they're going to split votes.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, I've had many conversations with Shamika. I like Shamika, and and I'm going to always be respectful of Shamika.
Okay.
So this is just a pure political, my perspective.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
no disrespect to her, but I'm always curious to hear, do people actually think that her and I are going to split the vote? Because I don't. I think that's an answer, unless we're just saying black people, period, and they're going to split the vote because they're 2 black people, or are we talking about getting into the weeds of who I am and who she is, what I do and what she does?
It's actually not. It's not doing that. It's really not doing that. And the reason I say that is the percentages of white to blacks in the city of Louisville is far outweighs the black community.
70+% to 22%.
Okay. So now what you need in order to win, because not saying that you don't have any white constituencies, either of you, because
Mm-hmm.
that's not so, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that anyway. What I'm saying is, if I'm talking about those 6,000 votes that I know are us,
Mm-hmm.
So
because I get where you're coming from. I guess I'm
yeah.
drilling down on, of the 6,000 votes, and it may be a little bit more than that now, but of the 6,000 votes, I'm saying I think people, and again, I'm going to get to the larger question too, in terms of outside of our community, but I'm always sort of curious and intrigued by, because I hear this all the time, every single day.
Okay.
You're going to split the vote. You're going to split the vote. And in my honest opinion, I don't think we're going to split the vote. I think that Shamika is going to get votes, but when it comes to the majority of people in the black community, I think that I have an upper hand, respectfully, because as a pastor and as one who was born and raised here and one who has done work here for years, I just, again, in my humble opinion, I could be wrong, certainly, I don't think we're going to split any votes. I've got I was listening to there's an ad about to come out with Dr. Bruce Williams from Bates. There's one with Dr. Cosby from St. Stephen's, so on and so forth. I have the Urban League president. She's not endorsing me as the Urban League president, but Sadiqa Reynolds, who has come out on many occasions in support of myself. And that's just the tip. I'm about to have a talk with the Ferguson mayor. And again, that's not in Louisville, but my point is, I don't know if I'm going to split the vote, but I do think, to your point, I went back and looked at those numbers between David Tandy and Greg Fisher in their primary. Now, David Tandy was the sitting council president. Mayor Fisher, with the exception of a failed Senate run, had no political experience.
Right.
Mayor Fisher, in their primary, if I'm not mistaken, won 384 of the 515 precincts. He didn't split the vote with David Tandy. he got a portion, though, a nice sized portion of the vote of the Black community. So to your point, yes, I don't think that we're going to split the vote, but I think that the possibility, if we simply focus in on Black folks, Black and brown communities, then we're going to neutralize it with each other. So what our campaign has done is that while we have a lot of inroads and we're connecting with our base, which is roughly Black and brown, that's our strongest base. We're also making inroads into other communities. And yeah, so I think that there's a strategy in place, but the other part is we're also working against, and I don't want to call it a challenge, I'll say an opportunity. We're working the opportunity to bring more political education.
Okay.
Because the other part that I'm seeing is that other candidates that have very deep pockets are buying gatekeepers in our community. And every day, a new person is coming out promoting one of the candidates that don't look like them, but they're doing that. And that's also a challenge. And that's one of the reasons why Louisville's never had a Black mayor. That's one of the reasons why we're the 4th or 5th most segregated city in America. That's one of the reasons why we're dealing with the issues in this city that we deal with, because oftentimes leading candidates know exactly how to get large numbers of Black and brown people to vote for them. And that's not because of their presence in Black communities. It's because of their friendships with Black leaders.
Okay. Yeah.
So that is I was, and people that know me know I try to speak it as, I be as plain as I can be as transparent as I can be, and be as upfront and real as I can be. And I know this is true. When I first announced that I was running for mayor, and I had people coming at me in terms of people who wanted to work on the campaign and be a campaign manager and campaign this and strategist. And I sat down and talked with a lot of people. And one of the things that I've noticed is that as a Black candidate, I'm given a playbook that other Black candidates have been given that failed.
Right.
And do it this way and do it this way. And one of the things that I'm not doing is it that way. And I believe with all the challenges and obstacles that are in front of, myself, and I'm sure even Shamika, we are pushing the envelope in this primary. And the one thing people have to say is we're doing it without any of the kickbacks. We don't have a lot of money. We are truly grassroots. But when you talk about this mayoral campaign, this primary, we may be the underdogs, but they got our name in that conversation. And we're just getting started. We got a big debate tomorrow. And I look at it like this. I'm not going to get up there and do what others have done and just ride off into the sunset and just say, hey, I gave it my best shot with that playbook. No.
Okay.
If I'm going to do this, then I'm going to make
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah. Then I'm going to go there. And I just think that, again, as a faith leader, as a pastor, I have a set of morals, parameters, spiritual parameters that I'll operate in, because I don't want to damage my witness. But I do believe in speaking truth to power. And as I put in a Facebook post today, that, today is Monday, Holy Week, Holy Monday. Today's the day that Jesus went into the temple and overturned the tables of the money changers and braided up that whip and drove them out of that place. And I said on my post today, tables are turning. And I just believe in speaking truth to power. I believe in telling the truth. And I believe in calling out things that need to be called out. And that's what I'm planning on doing. And we'll see what happens.
Well, that's why, I want to see this. That's what I want. I wanted to hear you tell me about Tim and his approach, and not just a lot of times, in an ad, you get a soundbite, in an interview, you get a soundbite, but when you get just to speak your truth and have time to say what it is you want to say, what you may not be able to say all the time, and
Well,
it
let me
has
put a plug in then. At 8
Huh?
o'clock tonight.
Put
At
the
8
plug
o'clock
in.
at 8 o'clock tonight, from my campaign Facebook page. Facebook, yeah, I think it's Facebook and YouTube, but especially Facebook. From the campaign page, I've got a 2-part interview that is going to be about as real as it gets. And I'm
Is that
talking
with
about,
Crystal?
yes. And there's a lot of stuff. It's coming on in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And we talking about everything from Greenberg to Keisha Dorsey and our back and forth to a lot of stuff.
Well, I wanted to kind of get to know you myself, because like I said, I don't know you. And this was my way to get to know you and some of the people that watch this show, that they can say, well, I can understand where the brother's coming from. I had these same questions. You may have answered somebody's question that it wasn't asked of you before. But just like you said, that you've got a new playbook, because I moved back here. I lived 35 years in Vegas, born and raised here, left, came back.
Mm-hmm.
And coming back, that I kind of saw some of what you were saying about that same playbook.
And that's why when they ask me, well, why should I vote for you? What's going to be different about you? Which is always mind blowing, but I get it. Okay. But they say, why should I vote for you? What's going to be different about you than everyone else? And I say, very, very simple. I'm not like them. I'm coming as a son of the city. I've led in terms of policy discussion. My background in community service speaks for itself. That's not some of these folks, just ask yourself, where were they at in 2015, 2010? Mm-hmm. What kind of equity, community building were they doing? And the reason why I need you to vote for me is very simple. Because if you don't vote for me and you vote for one of them, or if you don't vote, which is like voting for them, we're going to get another 4 years of what we've been dealing with. So it's honestly a time now to where we've got to decide, are we really ready for change? Or are we going to continue to be the comfortable city that has the knee-jerk reaction that we're going to put another wealthy white business developer in as mayor?
Okay. I'm going to say this to you too. You've got about 10 to 15 Black CEOs and presidents of almost every major organization in this city today. You know that.
Right.
That to me is also, that's your core group that sometimes they need to come together so they know that they can, when they stand up behind you or whomever becomes mayor, that's also their base. Even though they might work for somebody, that they are still who they are in the place that they are to represent who we are. And on that note, I say to you, my brother, my best wishes for you.
Thank you.
I thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate your candor and your straightforwardness, because see, Louisvillians want to hear the real deal. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We don't want the sound bites. I didn't know Tim, so I'm saying, Tim, tell me that day that I even approached you on the street, I'm saying, y'all might need to talk to each other, because sometimes it's
and we have about 4 or 5 times.
Okay. So
we have and tried to work out different things.
I sure wish I could have been on one of them conversations. That would have.
Yeah, we've done it, and we just
it still is where it is. Okay. All right.
Where it is.
So I'm going to watch tonight on how do we find that interview tonight?
It's at the Tim Findley for Mayor page on Facebook.
It's on Facebook. It'll only be on Facebook, or will you go?
I believe it's on Facebook and YouTube, but it will be replayed over and over in different places. I believe.
Y'all gonna put it on a loop? You're gonna put it on a loop?
Absolutely.
Tim, thank you so much. I appreciate
Absolutely.
your time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate
it. And the best of luck. And
thank you.
God bless you. And I'm going to turn over so I can go to Facebook and check you out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
God's blessing. Take care.
Bless you.
Thank you, darling. All right. Mr. Tim Findley. So he's coming on, Miss Crystal Gardner. has Tim on Facebook. He says Tim Findley Facebook page, so everybody can check that out. It's coming on at 8 o'clock, so in about 6 minutes. So I won't hold you because it's dinner time. Guess who's coming to dinner? I'll see you on Friday. We'll probably run this again on Friday. But I want to let you know one thing. This month is Jazz Appreciation Month. And I plan to show you my appreciation for the music that has sustained my career for over 50 years. So check us out. You got to tune in each time. And I'm not telling you when the music is coming. You got to watch it. But it's only going to be in the month of April, which is my month. You know, this is the girls. The girls are spring baby. I'm a derby baby. So stay tuned. It's dinner time. Go have your dinner. Bon appetit. I'll see you soon. All right.